Hey lovers. So I had a request by one of my followers to do a deep dive on Taylor's original 1989 era for newer Swifties or people that might not have remembered it or weren't fans at the time. And I thought that would be really fun for a deep dive. So I took a little detour back in time and did a bunch of research for you guys. So here you have it, 1989 original era, what went down. So I guess you could say that for Taylor herself, I think the 1989 era started here. This was January 26th, 2014, and it was the Grammy Awards. Red was up for Album of the Year. She thought it was going to win. It did not. Now, this left Taylor devastated. It was her step into the pop world, and she said she just ate burgers with her friends that night and cried. Now, this is really important. She said that night she woke up at 4 a.m. on January 27th and said this. I woke up at 4 in the morning and I was like, it's called 1989. I've been making 80s synth pop. I'm just going to do that. I'm calling it a pop record. I'm not listening to anyone at my label and I'm starting tomorrow. And as you guys know, like her birth, 1989 was born October 27th, 2014, exactly 9 months later. Now, for everybody else, I would say that the 1989 era started around March of 2014. She left Nashville and bought a pair of penthouses for $19.9 million in New York City, Manhattan's Tribeca neighborhood to be specific, and they were prior to her. Peter Jackson, the director, owned them. This is where we see a change in Taylor. She cuts her hair. She switches up her street style. She was papped out walking nearly every day. And this is ushering in a new era, but we had no idea what was coming. So pretty much the entire summer of 2014, we were getting her out and about. Now, the 1989 era as a whole, you can't really have it without New York City, her squad, the 1989 World Tour, and Harry Styles and Calvin Harris, and I will get to those. This is Taylor on a tour stop with some of her squad. The squad was a really big deal in the 1989 era, and I'm going to get to that and who was a part of it. But first, I want to talk about another part of the 1989 era that was significant, and that was Taylor coming into her own and starting to stand up for artists' rights in her work and her empowerment of other women. In the interviews leading up to 1989, the album, and after, she talked a lot about rebirth and changing her music. So now coming from the Red era to the 1989 era, and I can do the other eras if you guys want, just let me know in the comments. But I actually had someone ask me to do the Reputation era, so I'm going to do that next. But with the Red era and the Red album, so that was her first pop album, and I put that in air quotes because it wasn't a very cohesive album. It's a fantastic album, don't get me wrong. But Taylor herself has said that it wasn't very cohesive and it didn't flow. And by that, I think that she meant some of the songs are more on the pop side and then some are more country. It was almost like she was like dipping her toes into the pop world. And she figured out after not winning the Grammy, it wasn't as cohesive and she just needed to go all in and dive into the pop world. And you see a big like change and break with her and Big Machine Records, her record label, from Red to 1989. And I'll get to that too. So midsummer, Taylor starts leaving cryptic clues on her Instagram. She hires sky riding planes to write out in the sky Taylor Swift 18 5 p.m. Yahoo. This led up to a huge globally live streamed broadcasted event atop the Empire State Building. So on August 18th, 2014, this is Taylor atop the Empire State Building. She welcomes fans to her live stream saying, "Welcome to New York." Then during the next 30 minutes, surprises and shocks everybody with the announcement of her 5th studio album entitled Just 1989. She also revealed that the lead single would be Shake It Off and played the music video at that time, released it. This is a still from the Shake It Off music video. Basically, the whole thing is kind of tongue-in-cheek, making fun of herself dancing and all these different dancing clips. Here's another one where we get the infamous outfit. So during this time, she also reveals the 1989 cover art. She said, "Forget Nashville, I am being reborn as a pop star." In come the 1989 secret sessions. So during the promo run, after she announced 1989, up until she released it in October, she held a series of secret sessions where she invited fans to her home, where she baked cookies, she let them pet her cats. Very intimate setting, right? They were allowed to take Polaroids. And as somebody with her level of fame at that time, she was praised for an innovative way of interacting with fans like this. She went on to hold secret sessions for Reputation and Lover, but stopped after that. I imagine, with COVID, and then her level of fame after Folklore and Evermore just skyrocketed. So after Midnights, I don't even think it was possible or probably safe. So during the 1989 era, Taylor was thriving on being single with her squad. And she started to talk in interviews on her past relationships and how she was tired of them becoming like a pastime. And she says this in Miss Americana. There was one part where she says something to the effect of, I have a boyfriend, I'm a serial dater. I hang out with my friends, I'm calculated. Like she could never win at this point. I thought it was interesting too, because in an interview that I read, because I've read a lot of old interviews back from this era, and she said this is when she started painting a lot, which is so interesting to me because the first snippet of any painting we've ever seen from her is in the Karma music video. And it's a painting of Long Pond Sessions, which is owned by Aaron Dessner. But I digress. So October 27, 2014, 1989 was released. I'm sure you guys have seen by now that this was not the original cover that she had picked. She was smiling in the first Polaroid, did not like her smile, changed it to this one, and she said that this was actually the 13th Polaroid. Weird coincidence. But I think that this cover says so much because you see her whole face. She's smiling. It's the first time she's ever smiled on a cover. And the birds, the seagulls, are released from her body. They're flying around her now instead of just on her shirt. So her label at the time, Big Machine Records, and the industry itself had projected about 650,000 copies that they thought would sell within the first week. She smashed those expectations, selling 1.29 million copies of 1989 in the first week. So by the end of 2014, she had finally successfully made the leap from country to pop. She was awarded with the first ever Dick Clark Award for Excellence at the 2014 American Music Awards. She was named Billboard's Woman of the Year. Her level of fame skyrocketed during this time, and she closed out 2014 performing in Times Square on New Year's Eve. But we're not done with 2014 quite yet, because here's where some of her empowerment comes from in 2014. In the spring of 2014, she wrote an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal about music being art and fighting for artists' rights and artists to get paid on streaming platforms. So the day after 1989 debuted as number one on the Billboard 200, she pulls her entire catalog from Spotify. Spotify CEO Daniel Ek flew to Nashville and met with her personally several times to try to get her back on the platform. So then Apple Music comes out and says that they're not going to pay their artists during the 3-month trial period when people sign up for Apple Music. So Taylor writes an open letter. Go to part 2.